Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is leading aircraftman Caelan Baldwin Corr. This evening, we warmly welcome the family of Lance Corporal William Augustine Bauer, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here, we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us on war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lance Corporal William Augustine Bauer. William Bauer was born on 26th of October 1897 in Gympie, Queensland. Known as Billy, he was the third of 10 children born to Frederick and Elizabeth Bauer. The paternal side of the family were of German descent, and as a young man, Billy's father Frederick had anglicised his name to Frederick. As an adolescent, Billy was a member of the senior cadets and a student at the 1 Mile Boys State School in Gympie. At the outbreak of the First World War, he was working as a teacher at Tewantin State School. His first attempt to enlist in the Australian Imperial Forces was rejected due to his German parentage. Nevertheless, he persisted, and at not quite 19 years old, Billy Bauer was accepted for service on the 19th of October 1916. Bauer was allotted to the 7th Reinforcements of the 41st Infantry Battalion, a unit that was made up of Queensland and Northern Rivers, New South Wales. The reinforcements were given 3 months basic training at Bells Rock Paddock Enoggera Army Camp in Brisbane. Embarking for active service from Sydney aboard the troopship Wiltshire on the 2nd of February 1917, the draft of men arrived at Devonport, England on April 11th. They went straight into training at Dorrington Camp on the Salisbury Plain. Attached to the 11th Australian Training Battalion with the rank of private, Bauer and thousands of other Australian soldiers were put through a regime of military training, kit inspection, drill, route marches, and field sports. On the 23rd of July 1917, the reinforcements proceeded overseas to France. Here, they went into a relatively quiet area of the Western Front, known as the Nursery Sector, where new troops could be introduced to trench warfare. They joined the 41st Battalion near Haysbrook on the 10th of August. Toward the end of the month, Billy Bauer was appointed Lance Corporal. In October 1917, the battalion moved to the Ypres sector in Belgium to take part in the Battle of the Broadsea just as prolonged wet weather set in. The 41st made successful attacks at Zonnebeek and Passchendaele before the campaign bogged down. The battalion then moved back to Armentières on the Lys River. The winter there was quiet due to the high water table making the ground impenetrable. In March 1918, the 41st was sent south, knowing not exactly when or where they were expected to help hold the German offensive. They were stationed at Doullens, outside the Allied High Command headquarters, just as Marshal Foch of France was appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Allied forces. The 41st Battalion were then sent to fill a large gap in the Allied line, which had opened between the Ancre and Somme rivers. The battalion held a line in the Bay Corby Road of the Somme River from the 27th of March until the 5th of May without relief, as the Germans attempted to break through. On the 21st of April, Bauer and his fellow comrades may have observed a noteworthy incident of the war. Baron Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron, was shot down whilst flying overhead and crashed very close to where the men were. On the 27th of May 1918, Billy was made temporary corporal for 3 weeks to take place of his sergeant who had been wounded. The 41st remained in the Corby area of the Somme throughout the spring. In early July, they began training in readiness for the Battle of Hamel, an orchestrated and coordinated assault of infantry, tank, artillery, and air support. The Battle of Hamel was an overwhelming success, with all objectives captured within 93 minutes. On August 8, 1918, the battle began a big advance, pushing to capture ground along the Somme. 3 days later, at Méricourt-sur-Somme, in what the 41st Battalion's commanding officer described as the most difficult stunt attempted by the battalion, 8 men of the battalion were killed and 70 wounded. Amongst the dead was Lance Corporal William Bauer. Bauer's mother, Elizabeth, received several condolence letters from comrades of her son. Lieutenant Butler wrote, "As platoon officer, and may I say, friend of your son, I wish to express my deepest sympathies with you in your loss. His death has caused universal regret amongst his fellow soldiers. His work in the battle was of the very highest order, and he died as game as they are made. His death was caused by a shell which blew his leg off, but although mortally wounded, he bandaged himself up and was quite cheerful. He asked a pal, Private Colin Doherty, to get him a stretcher, but by the time he returned, Billy was dead. He was buried at Heath Cemetery, Harbourniers, under the epitaph his parents had chosen. His noble sacrifice, our sacred loss, our dear one. He was 20 years old. William Bauer's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories and services and sacrifices told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lance Corporal William Augustine Bauer, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.